Chapter 49. I refuse. The offer was dishonorable from the start, so no formalities were used in the refusal. Ulrika seemed to have anticipated this, as she promptly made another offer. What about double the amount? I refuse that as well. For times then. You'll refuse this too? How about 10 times more? Johann was surprised. He honestly hadn't expected such a sum. 10 times the amount could tempt one into betrayal over and over again. It was incomprehensible why someone would offer such a price, especially for someone like Stephen. Noticing Johann's thoughts, Ulrika casually observed him. Her beauty reminded Johann of a venomous snake. He clenched and unclenched his fist, uncomfortable. What's left then? Ah, yes. You can't kill with your own hands, can you? After all, you're a knight. I don't expect that much. Just close your eyes. My men will handle the annoying wolf. Johann was irked by her confident demeanor. It seemed she believed her offer would be readily accepted. Frankly, other knights might have accepted such an offer. Knights are human after all. Like a devout believer can covet gold and lie, a knight can be honest about their desires. Honor is a knight's armor, but in private, even that can be shed. Knowing this, Ulrika had sought this private meeting. This is my family's fiefdom. Dying here won't dishonor you, but my family. So, have I said enough? What more should I consider? Invite you to a hunt? Need an excuse to leave? Isn't this too high a price for killing a brother without inheritance rights? That's something only a naive knight would say. Ulrika scoffed. Do you know how much money my foolish bloodline has wasted so far? And how much more will be wasted? Countess Abner spends for the sake of bloodline, but I think differently. The eldest, who will inherit the family, is what matters. The money being wasted now is the family's but also mine. It's better to deal with it quickly before more is lost. Surprisingly honest, it's a bit unsettling. You're a wandering knight. Who would believe you if you went around talking? If you're so capable, why don't you handle it yourself? Are you pretending to be stupid, or are you really that dumb? Once it gets to the count, you can't kill like now. And you'd just cause more trouble. Ulrika, apparently tired of the conversation, pulled out a certificate. It was a promissory note with the seal of a trading company, redeemable for the promised amount immediately. Ulrika threw the certificate in front of him. She seemed unconcerned, confident she could handle it even if he fled. Anyone who could spend 1,000 gold coins to kill a brother would surely spend more. Now, stop talking and make a decision. What will you do? Ulrika was sure Johann would accept. Johann calmly replied. I refuse. Are you serious? Seriously. Since you spoke at length, I'll return the courtesy and do the same. If the child is so precious to the Count, even if it's not my responsibility, the grudge could still be directed at me. People's feelings don't resolve that neatly. As Johann pointed out something Ulrika hadn't considered, her expression subtly twisted. It was indeed a valid point. People sometimes displace their grudges onto those who are not involved at all. Especially if they happen to dislike the person. And even if you trust me, I find it hard to trust you. I don't have a way to retaliate. If you argue like that, wouldn't it be impossible to conduct any business in the world? That's why I only do business with people stronger than me who are relatively trustworthy. Ulrika glared at Johann's statement, but Johann didn't care. So, is that everything you wanted to say? No. There's one last, major reason. My honor. Ah. Forget it. No one was watching or listening. You should listen to the end. Apart from my honor, I made a promise to Stephen, and it doesn't feel right to break it first. Stephen might be an annoying guy, but he hasn't done anything wrong enough to break my promise and kill him yet. Having finished his piece, Johann stood up. Further conversation would only be harmful to both of them. Then I'll be leaving now. Ulrika looked as if she had seen a rare monster. If what was just said isn't about honor, then what is? It seems Ulrika Gon really did try to kill you. I was half in doubt about it. How did you confirm that? She came to me and offered several times the gold to let him kill you. Stephen clutched his head and buried it in the blanket. He hadn't expected such a brazen proposal. Don't worry. Once we meet the Count, she won't dare do anything rash. I don't think she's the type to give up easily. Wait, you're not saying you've been bribed? What about the promise? What happened to the promise? She really knows how to handle people. She has a way of talking that even those not bribed would want to be. Don't worry. I didn't take her offer. Really? Stephen looked at Johann with a wary gaze. He knew Ulrika's skill in manipulating people, having experienced it several times. Didn't she always have the people in the castle under her control? I tend not to make suspicious deals with those I can't handle. Ulrika Gong is a bit devilish. Ha ha ha. Stephen burst into laughter, shaking off his fear. It was the first time he heard someone speak of Ulrika like that. Right. She does have a devilish aspect. Stephen finally stopped laughing and said, Right. You've thought this through well. It's better not to make such suspicious deals. If we return safely, I can pay you in gold instead of a ransom. I promise. You? Johann asked incredulously, and Stephen was angered by his blatant disregard. Do you think I have less money than a knight dastard like you? Even if disregarded for his force, he couldn't be ignored for his wealth. Especially not by a knight like that. Ah. Don't take it the wrong way. But you're not the firstborn and don't have an inheritance, so where will this gold come from? The power of nobility came from their fiefs. Even the impoverished Eights family could afford expensive arms and servants. Ulrika could throw around gold because she had already inherited some territories. Heirs of noble families often received some territories early on. But Stephen? Stung by the comment, Stephen fell silent. After a moment, he spoke up. There's a way to get it. You're not thinking of extorting it from the Count, are you? What nonsense. Well, we'll see. I'll look forward to it. Johann was skeptical. Could Stephen really come up with that much gold? Johann and his knights entered the castle without disarming, a privilege of their victory. As they entered, disapproving glares came from all sides. No noble family's vassals had escaped losses in the war. The gazes were naturally harsh. Wars were prepared in winter to start in spring, not the other way around. Fighting in winter, especially with delayed supplies, was suicidal. Moreover, with their commander captured, the knights and mercenary captains had a good excuse. Retreating the next day was the obvious choice. Count. Stephen's face turned red. There was no way he couldn't have heard the insult. The Countess is coming in. A servant entered, announcing this, and after those present paid their respects, the Countess entered the hall. Wrapped in expensive silk, the Countess bore the look of an aged leopard, exuding a presence that only a noble of his rank could. Why are you armed in my castle? What? Didn't you allow it, my lord? I never gave such permission. Disarm yourselves. The Countess raised her hand, and the guards by her side stepped forward as if to pressurize. The number of guards, more than usual and well-armed, clearly indicated an intentional display. The messenger of Count Jarpen clicked his tongue. The Countess had agreed too readily, perhaps for this very reason. A simple way for the Countess to regain dignity and authority in front of her vassals. The knights present couldn't overturn the negotiations with just this. The Countess was playing a dangerous game, staying just within the boundaries of nullifying the negotiations. The knights, aware of this, prepared to reluctantly disarm, their faces showing signs of frustration. But Johann was different. Unlike the knights of the Jarpen family, Johann didn't need to care about such things. If you want my weapon, you'll have to take it from my dead body. Back off. The approaching guard stopped, looking at the Countess in confusion, not expecting such a response. Is Sir the Marcel's troll slayer? Yes, my lord. I thought he was a freelance knight, but he's from the Jarpen family. I'm here only as a guest, not a member of the Jarpen family. Then why did you interfere in the fight? I had no choice but to defend my honor. Does that mean you hold no particular grudge against the house of Countess Abner? Indeed, my lord. Then, in respect of that honor, I grant you a privilege. When she backed down, Johann was surprised. He had heard that she was more emotional, but her demeanor was as cool as steel. This conversation was almost like an offer of reconciliation. It was a rational attitude, but people, especially those of high status, are not always rational. Johann realized how cold-blooded the nobility trained as feudal lords could be. Compared to them, Johann and the other knights were hot-blooded. My lord Countess. Even if you permit it, I still feel my honor has been tarnished. Please allow my son to fight the troll slayer and restore our honor. And so it went. The sudden appearance of the old knight made Johann realize his reputation had spread. Challenging Johann to a one-on-one duel meant he was considered worthy of such an honor. Otherwise, such a challenge wouldn't have been made. No one praises defeating a mere rogue in a duel. Now, Johann had become a target for knights seeking honor. Stephen whispered desperately from behind. Chapter 50. Stephen was well aware of who this old man's mentioned son in the recent article was. The butcher Gerdulf. A knight of the Highan family, serving Countess Abner, Gerdulf was a brutal and fierce knight, aptly nicknamed the Butcher. While not as notorious as Sir Karamaf, known as the Noble Executioner, Gerdulf was also a knight who had killed many in his career, no different than Countess Abner's hound. As Stephen tried to dissuade Johann, Countess Abner was also displeased. Although she would be relieved if Gerdulf overpowered Johann, the aftermath would be too bothersome. Count Jarpen, known for his admiration of honorable knights, would be furiously enraged, potentially disrupting the recently amicable negotiations. While he might overlook a fiefdom feud, killing an invited knight was an insult no noble would tolerate. Moreover, Johann was an up-and-coming knight, earning the nickname Troll Slayer. If Gerdulf were injured or defeated, it was irritating to see someone trying to boost his family's honor by picking fights, but now that it had come to this, the Countess could not refuse. If Johann were to back down, then the Countess would consider it favorably. How can I refuse a challenge brought to me? In any case, these knights were all infuriating, constantly grating on his nerves. Stephen watched the fight with a tense expression, annoyed by Johann's attitude in accepting the challenge despite his advice. There was a reason he tried to stop the fight with Gerdulf. Gerdulf embodied all the negative traits of a knight. Cruel, deceitful, and savage. While some knights were trained in honor and values from a young age, others, like Gerdulf, were bred in blood and slaughter. If not for Countess Abner, Gerdulf, with his reckless behavior, would have long been hanged. Target. Kill. Target. Kill. I'm understood. A warrior, seemingly larger than Johann by a head or two, entered with a clumsy manner of speaking. Serino, his father, tried hard to explain the situation, but the warrior seemed to understand less than half of it. Gerdulf's savagery was partly due to his low intelligence. Unlike other knights, his brain, incapable of considering consequences, made him more violent. Over 2 meters tall. Count Jarpen's knights, familiar with Gerdulf's name, became very serious. Whispers were heard, wondering how to stop him. They wanted to intervene, fearing to seem rude to Johann. It seems he is not an unbeatable foe. Unlike his time in the fiefdom, with growing experience, he could now hear the whispers of his instincts. How strong is the opponent? Can he win? If they fight, how will the opponent attack? This led to a calm assessment. Johann wielded a newly received longsword and shield, while Gerdulf, without a shield, held a two-handed sword. The greatsword seemed even larger, likely customized to his size. Gerdulf's desire to charge and strike was evident on his face. Johann surveyed him, considering that dragging out the fight might be advantageous given Gerdulf's impatience. With the sound of bones crushing, Gerdulf howled in pain. The duel was over in a single move. As Johann lunged into the reach of the greatsword, Gerdulf attempted combat wrestling, thinking he had caught Johann off guard, and Johann counterattacked in kind. The two knights, confident in their strength, clashed with no finesse at all. And the winner was, of course, Johann. Gerdulf screamed in pain mixed with surprise, not having expected Johann to be stronger than him. My arm, my arm. Johann clicked his tongue. The duel had ended too quickly due to Gerdulf's brutish attack. Originally, Johann had planned to exchange sword and shield blows before winning a tense fight. Even if he lost, it would save face for both. He had just reconciled with the Countess and did not want to tarnish her reputation. But when Gerdulf attacked with brute force, Johann had no choice but to respond. And that led to the current situation. The people of the house of Countess Abner looked at Gerdulf with very crumpled expressions. Though Gerdulf was a brutal knight who knew no honor, he had been respected for his continuous victories. Such a man loses all worth the moment he is defeated. Hang in there. Rather. Amidst the noise, Gerdulf's father shouted. What he meant to say next was clear to everyone. But Gerdulf stammered out. I surrender, I surrender. Sighs erupted from all around. Johann released his arm and exclaimed. I thank the Countess for giving me the opportunity to duel with an honorable knight. It seems Sir Gerdulf wanted to test my strength in this manner, but had we properly clashed weapons, the outcome of the fight would have been uncertain. After a moment of silence, one quick-witted person started clapping and cheering to break the awkward atmosphere. Blessings on Sir Johan's honor. Blessed in the name of God. A fight between honorable knights, well observed. A battle that would please the gods as well. Although no one really thought so, no one dared to speak out in front of the Count. Johann sensed the Count's nod of thanks. Continually weighing every action in front of high nobility was exhausting, even for someone with a body as strong as steel like Johann. Fortunately, from then on, there was no need for Johann to step forward. After Gerdulf was carried away, an envoy came out to talk with the Countess and exchange documents. Johann also received the ransom he was promised. 200 Empire gold coins. A reward well worth the trouble he had gone through. Count. Ulrika is. Ulrika Gong. Yes? You should call her Ulrika Gong. Why yes. Ulrika Gong is trying to kill me. Evidence? Do you have any evidence? No evidence, but you know, Count. How much Ulrika Gong? I have a proposal for you. Stephen's eyes widened at Countess Abner's words. What kind of proposal is she making? I spoke to the Sharkaz monastery. They said they would accept you if sent. It will be safe there. The Sharkaz monastery, also known as the Silent Monastery. Unlike other monasteries, this secluded one forbade its monks from any social activities. Once entered, one cannot leave until death. It was akin to social death. Countess, Countess, Countess. Stephen trembled. He had heard rumors of disgraced nobles being sent to the Silent Monastery, but never thought it would happen to him. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. But this is the last chance I can offer you. At Countess Abner's words, Stephen realized. This failure meant Countess Abner had given up on him. He had underestimated the situation. Even familial bonds had limits, especially for a countess who must lead a house. I will think about it and respond. You better decide quickly. For your own good. Yes. Johann and Count Jarpen's emissaries were happily intoxicated. Having completed their mission as emissaries, they were now just enjoying the hospitality before returning. Countess Abner had served the finest wine and cuisine for the sake of her own reputation, impressing Johann. His refined palate had grown only more demanding over his travels. A toast to Sir Johann's exploits. To the power blessed by the gods. Ha ha ha. Who knew the knight could trample that butcher? The people of Countess Abner's house entertained the emissaries with smiling faces despite their displeasure. They had to endure, having already made peace. Victory is always the remedy for injustice. Hey, hey! Johann was puzzled when Stephen approached his table. He had already received the ransom, so why return? What's the matter? There's something urgent I need to discuss. Karamaf doesn't seem interested in listening. Stop joking. It's good news for you too. I swear. Johann's interest piqued as Stephen insisted. Had something gone wrong after meeting the Count? All right. Let's hear it. You've had a hard time. Farewell. Johann had already bid farewell. Once Stephen entered the monastery, it was likely they would never meet again. Don't make such a dog-like joke. What are you talking about? So you're saying you'll bravely face the sword of Ulrika Gong? Well, that's not bad either. Maybe Johann could, but Stephen was likely to die within a week, so much so that bets could be placed on it. Stop the nonsense and listen. I have a fiefdom. It's a small town, but... Johann thought Stephen had gone mad. Are you dreaming? Didn't I say listen? I really have a fiefdom. Technically, it's not the fiefdom itself, but the right to collect taxes from that fiefdom. In this world, fiefdoms were usually entangled in complexities. The owner of the fiefdom might be A, managed by B, with the tax rights held by C, and the judicial authority with D. A nobles' wars often arose over these entangled rights. If it's tax rights, it's the right to collect taxes from the fiefdom. Practically, it was one of the most valuable rights. It was enough to claim. Who gave it to you? Countess Abner, in the past. In front of others. No. Secretly. Only one bishop as a witness. Now I see why Ulrika Gong wants to kill you. It was a serious statement, not a joke. Nobles didn't spare even their own parents and children. It wasn't rare to see a firstborn wage war against their parents for not receiving their rightful fiefdom. Even more so when a part of the fiefdom's tax rights were secretly given to the third child. If Ulrika knew, it would be serious enough to wage a war against Countess Abner based on this. Damn! How would I have known when I received it? I was young then. Anyway, if you have the tax rights, isn't that good? Just sell them at a suitable place and escape to the city. The price of the tax rights of a fiefdom was unimaginably high. With that money, one could settle in the city and live a life of luxury and ease. I can't sell it. Because of pride. No. The current state of that town is a mess. Stephen said with a mix of frustration. If the state of the town had been decent, he would have sold it long ago. The number of monsters nearby had increased, and after repeated attacks, the townspeople had fled to the mountains, becoming slash-and-burn farmers. With no people, there was naturally no tax to be collected. I'll give you the entire tax rights of that fiefdom. Come with me to subdue the monsters of this fiefdom. If you give away all the tax rights of that fiefdom, where will you get your income? I'll give you half of the fiefdom's tax rights. Johann seriously contemplated whether it was safe to join hands with Stephen. Teaming up with someone smart enough to deceive him was dangerous, but someone as foolish as this seemed risky in a different way. What about the troops? Surely you're not thinking of making me hire soldiers? Stephen, apparently embarrassed by what he heard, blushed and changed his words. Why yes, I can hire mercenaries with the money I've prepared. What about the knights? It would be much easier if we could mobilize the knights. Each would bring a certain number of soldiers too. Are you crazy? What do you think the knights of the family think of me? It would have been better if they despised or disliked him, but they could have been bribed by Ulrika to kill him. Then, assuming only the mercenaries participate, do I just need to join in person? You caught a troll? Aren't other monsters easier to catch? It's not that simple a problem. Johann fell into thought. Anyway, let's assume we go through this trouble and gain tax rights. To whom should it be sold for the best profit? Selling to Ulrika seems like it would fetch the highest price. Chapter 51. Price was a factor, but it seemed like the option with the least repercussions. Johann realized this while watching the Jarpen and Abner families fight. Even in a favorable position, the Jarpen family extended their hand first. The reason was simple. If they weren't planning to fight to the death with the Abner family, they had to work together anyway. Countess Abner, despite feeling bitter and angry, accepted the proposal immediately. Nobles sometimes fight to the death, but such trivial disputes were different. Regardless of win or loss, they had to respect each other's pride to some extent. Imagine handling matters well and gaining tax rights. The moment you sell it to someone else, it would eventually reach Ulrika's ears. At that moment, Ulrika would grasp the situation and explode with anger. So the first one to sell to should be Ulrika Gong. What kind of nonsense is that? Why would Ulrika buy that? Stephen was shocked. Even if Johann was overly confident, he couldn't force Ulrika's twisted personality to change with power. She won't buy it. Why? Because Ulrika dislikes me. She won't listen to my proposal. Apart from disliking, Ulrika Gong knows how to see reality. If the rights to a fiefdom will complicate things by going to others, she'll compromise. Am I wrong? Stephen couldn't argue. It made sense when put that way. Unless it's a trade guild, selling it to another nearby feudal lord would give Ulrika a real headache. Hey, that's a bit. Even as a member of the Abner family, Stephen was flustered. That was a bit too much. This is how negotiations are done. Got it? Of course, I don't want to sell it off like that and create hostility, but... So, are you going to negotiate now? No. This is just a scenario if things go well. Trying to negotiate with something that doesn't exist yet will only lead to mockery. In the worst case, it might even cause interference. That's true. Good point. Stephen mumbled, then looking at Johann, he said. But it's really good to have a knight like you. I can't trust the other knight dastards of the family at all. I haven't agreed to do it yet. What? Bring the map. I'll decide after hearing the details. Ultimately, Johann accepted Stephen's proposal. Although Stephen said it was a small town, that was by Stephen's standards, it was actually quite a large town. Being over a few hundred in population was considered large. Anyway, this map is really... The maps of this era were terrible. Johann sometimes wondered if he was looking at a map or scribbles. Having followed Priest Valberger in managing the fiefdom's taxes and population registry, Johann had useful experience in this area. Stephen, who was without a scribe or priest, looked at Johann reading the documents alone with amazement. Having never owned a fiefdom, Johann had developed a habit of contemplating how to develop any fiefdom that came into his hands. If it was something Johann could do, others would have tried it a few times as well. What Johann was facing now was not a future matter but an immediate subjugation. It was a common occurrence. If the monsters were defeated and peace returned to the area, it was fortunate, but if not, the fight had to continue. From the employer's perspective, weighing options was inevitable. Mercenaries cost money from the moment they are hired. In a situation with no end in sight, pouring money into it rather than withdrawing could be more beneficial. But Johann was different. It would have been easier if it was just one strong monster causing the failure. This seems easy but is actually difficult. Still, Johann decided to go ahead with it. A significant factor was that all the money would come from Stephen's pocket. Countess Abner looked at Johann and Stephen as if amazed. Although I granted privilege out of respect for honor. Countess Abner felt a headache coming on at the sight of the knight who brought a strange plan after seeking reconciliation. Johann is an outsider. It was unlikely that he would have led such a plan. The cause was clearly Stephen. A last desperate attempt to avoid going to the monastery. It was both annoying and pitiful. Still, she was the most cherished child in her youth. Hindcut town has failed thrice in subjugation. Some priests say the land is cursed, as it's infested with monsters. Do we really need to hire mercenaries and ensure its subjugation? Yes. Please trust and leave it to me. I have already agreed with Sir Johann. Sincerity was felt in those recent words. Of course, Stephen didn't notice at all. There will be no support from the family. Do not ask for any help if the mercenaries' wages are delayed. I am doing this to elevate my honor. How could I ask the family for help? Stephen exclaimed, pounding his chest. It was a knightly attitude, but no one in the room took him seriously. If anyone here wishes to join this honorable expedition, speak now. I will consider it. Silence followed Countess's words. It signified their unwillingness to get involved in trouble with Stephen. Countess, please give me and my son a chance. Sir Ino. Is Sir Gerdolf fully recovered? He wasn't injured at all. Give us a chance, and we will redeem ourselves. Granted. For them, with neither a noteworthy fiefdom nor family, the Countess was the only reliable entity. Johann clicked his tongue at the Countess's effort to include and help the knight. Nobility's rule might be heartless and tearless, but as humans, it's not always possible to be that way. With the butcher. Cough. Sorry. I should have stopped it. What nonsense are you talking about? Nearly 200 mercenaries were hired. Considering Stephen's finances, it would be a disaster if the campaign wasn't concluded within half a year. Count Jarpen's emissaries, particularly the knights, regretted not participating in Johann's expedition. It was thanks to Johann's reputation and connections. Count Jarpen might understand, but he couldn't be kept waiting for too long. For both Johann and Stephen, time was of the essence. So that's why you called me? Yes, Suitlignim. You're undervaluing a wizard's worth. How can I equate friendship with gold? Suitlig looked incredulous at Johann's easygoing response. This monster hunt desperately needs your experienced advice, Suitlignim. You seem to think my magical secrets are akin to a hunter's experience, but I assure you they're not. If you want to know how to deal with a monster hunt, summon an experienced hunter or a mercenary captain. It's like using a catapult to hunt goblins. But Johann, undeterred, asked, what do you think is the reason for the endless appearance of monsters? There are various reasons. Maybe we haven't found the breeding dens. Creatures like goblins, known for their fertility, often do this. They're adept at hiding their dens. Though different, ghouls are also troublesome if their source isn't found, continually rising from the dead. Ghouls? How do they usually come about? Well, everyone says something different. I think they emerge when a corpse with a strong grudge is buried improperly, but priests believe they arise from committing sacrilege. I'm not sure. It's not my area of expertise. What else could there be? In the case of clever monsters, some flee when the hunters arrive and then return. Beasts as clever as wolves you're asking about are good at detecting human presence. If the hunt has failed a few times, there should be records of what kind of creatures appeared. Mostly goblins. Apparently, they're particularly clever and even control boars. Those pests are surprisingly skilled in that regard. Suet clicked his tongue. Goblins, being monsters, were inherently brutal and cruel, but that didn't necessarily mean they were stupid. Depending on the tribe, there were plenty of clever ones. Now that I think about it, there's one more possibility. What is it? Mercenaries pretending to work, failing to hunt, and then embezzling the money. It's surprisingly common. Looking at the Countess, anyone doing that would have met a gruesome end. You know well. Indeed, Countess Abner is famous. Once, she hanged a group of mercenary captains. Johann was relieved to meet Countess Abner as a knight, not a mercenary. No, captain. You've received such a large sum of money and still not resting? You keep working. When did I tell you to come? If you want to rest, go and rest. How can I be absent where the captain goes? The mercenaries grumbled, but their faces were very bright. Thanks to Goran and Khan's choice, they had earned several years' worth of salary at once. At first, when they heard that Goran and Khan were involved in a complicated matter, they were horrified. Such reactions changed to the opposite after the reward they received upon arriving at Count Jarpan's territory. The soldiers currently escorting Johann in the punitive force were the mercenaries they had hired when they left the city. It was much more reliable than hiring new mercenaries. When they heard about the punitive mission, the mercenaries unanimously decided they wanted to follow this fortunate employer and earn even bigger. Who would be crazy enough to step back from such a golden opportunity to rest? The same went for Goran's mercenary group. Stop! We rest here today. Summon one sub-captain each. Is that Heincut town over there? Seems like it. It's gloomy. All abandoned towns are gloomy. The punitive force set up camp a little away from the town. It was risky to enter the monster-infested town, especially as the sun was setting. Please give my son a chance, Sir Stephen. You're asking for a chance for your own son. What do you think, Sir Johann? Although Inno brought it up himself, he regretted participating here with Gerdolf, wondering if it was a mistake. It's hard to find a knight as unreliable as that. Chapter 52. Although Stephen was the commander of the punitive force, anyone with eyes could immediately tell that the real commander was Johann. Not only them, but even the captains of the mercenaries knew it. Stephen did not possess the reputation or ability to lead such a punitive force. When Inno poked him, Gerdolf recited the words he had memorized following his father's command. I will go and kill. I pledge my loyalty. No. Darkness is about to fall. It doesn't seem necessary to take unnecessary risks for Johann. It seems unnecessary to take risks for Johann as darkness is about to fall. Stephen repeated exactly what was said. Gerdolf, with a fierce look, was puzzled. Parroting words? No, this person. Enough, Stephen. Let's not complicate things unnecessarily. A commander doesn't need to issue orders for every little thing. Is that so? Watching Johann play with Stephen, Inno spoke up. Sir, may I have a word with you in private? What is it? I hope you weren't displeased with my behavior at our last meeting. I'm not particularly displeased. A knight may act according to honor. As expected, you understand. I knew you would. It's not about anything else, but here. Inno tried to hand over a jingling pouch to Johann, who looked puzzled. What does this mean? Could you bestow the honor of the first assault to my son? I've said it before. There's no need to rush in under dark circumstances. Such things don't bother Gerdolf. I'll take care of it. If there's a problem, other soldiers will have to be involved too, so wait. As Inno's face fell, Johann added. In any situation, I'll yield the honor of the first assault to Sir Gerdolf. Don't worry. Thank you. Sir. Here. No. Keep that pouch. I trust Sir Gerdolf's abilities. But Johann inwardly regretted it. Could the sound in that pouch be silver coins? Surely not gold? If you're going to give, do it before departure, as giving in a camp like this will surely be noticed by others. Neither Ino nor Gerdulf spoke the Empire's language with the distinctive accent of nobility. Humans express their status through accents and behavior. Unlike Johann and other nobles, they were likely from self-made or newer families. That explained their anxious behavior. While some knights, like those from the city, obsess over the first assault, Johann was indifferent. Boasting about beheading a troll was more impressive than claiming the first assault in a fight. "Sir Knight! It seems a fight has broken out in the town." At the sudden report, Johann's face hardened. "Are there people who came to this town first to fight?" Serfs who fled to the mountains might have gathered money to hire mercenaries. No. The serfs wouldn't have done that. Considering their numerous failures, unless the serfs are fools. Could it be rogue bands that have drifted into the town? Especially since many mercenaries were let loose after the war. It's the priests. Suitlig interrupted the noisy chatter. Yes? I hear hymns from over there. If they're singing hymns while fighting, they must be from a religious order. Ah. It wasn't just mercenaries roaming around like wild dogs. Monks and priests from the religious orders were also traveling everywhere. The difference is, while mercenaries covet gold, the religious order seeks to spread the will of God, right? If there are monsters, they go to hunt them. If the people are suffering from drought or floods, they go to help. If there's looting due to war, they go to protect. If they're from a religious order, it makes sense for them to step foot in such a remote village. Put the agile horse-riding soldiers in front. We need to go and support them. Upon Johann's words, the mercenary captains responded. Yes. Sir Gerdulf, let's see your skills. Thank you. I won't disappoint you. Gerdulf spoke hesitantly. Ino was surprised by this. Usually, Gerdulf wouldn't understand unless the Count himself repeated the orders. But he understood Johann's words at once. I will get ready too. The atmosphere froze for a moment at Stephen's shout. Johann spoke calmly. If the commander isn't at the main base, the mercenaries might waver. Stay and firmly guard the base. All right. Suetignim. Please take care of him. I'll do my best. Gerdulf, at the forefront, let out a ferocious roar. It was more akin to the bellow of a monster than that of a human. The sound was so intense it seemed to dispel the darkness around. Handling a greatsword on horseback required not only immense strength but also extensive training. While lacking in social skills, Gerdulf proved why he was known as the Butcher. Ooh! The sudden cavalry charge scattered the goblins rampaging in the town. The goblins, smaller than humans, were horrified by the surprise attack of the mounted warriors. Realizing they were being supported from behind, the goblins howled. However, it was rare for an army to respond to such a surprise attack amidst intense battle. Kill them! Don't spare any goblins! The mercenaries fiercely shot their crossbows. The goblin armor, mostly made of beast hides, was no match for the bolts of the heavy cavalry crossbows. Sir Gerdulf, fight facing forward! After skewering 3 goblins with his lance, Johann shouted sharply. Gerdulf, not looking aside, rampaged like a berserker. The goblins' weapons were crude spears, shoddy bows and arrows, and slingshots. Continuous hits could still cause injury, as armor doesn't cover the entire body. But Gerdulf swung his weapon relentlessly, intent on killing his foes before getting hurt himself. As dozens of heavily armed soldiers rampaged, the goblins' poor formation quickly collapsed. Johann struck Gerdulf with his riding crop. Coordinate! Gerdulf! You understood. Gerdulf nodded as if coming to his senses. He rode up beside Johann, his face covered in blood. As the savvy mercenaries threw torches, dispelling the darkness, the situation became visible. It seemed the goblins had quickly emerged from underground upon hearing noises. But this level of defense could be easily countered even after an ambush. Sir Knight! The goblins are quite well armored. The goblins inside were surprisingly clad in metal armor. Although of questionable quality, the mere fact that they had forged and attached metal plates was impressive. It indicated at least a captain-like figure among them. Inside, figures resembling monks held their formation, fending off the goblins in the barely visible darkness. Regardless of the armor, crush them. Yes. Johann, hesitating not, commanded his mercenaries. Even his presence at the forefront inspired his troops. As goblins skewered on lances flew, the mercenaries roared. Assist the priests! Karamaf growled beside him. A deep rumble erupted from the darkness. Huge boars, weighing several hundred kilograms, charged ferociously, baring their tusks. "See crazy! What are these goblins raising?" The mercenaries were shocked at the sight of not just metal weaponry but also such savage boars. Johann felt the need to intervene personally. "Karamath! Drive them back! Gerdulf! Follow me! Let's hunt them down!" "Thank you." Johann swiftly turned his horse and rode off to the side. Karamath moved in a similar manner. The recklessly charging wild boar always had its flank as a weakness. "Fire! Cover, Sir Knight!" The mercenaries ignored the goblins and aimed to catch the wild boars first. A fully grown wild boar, especially one of monster size, was as dangerous as a beast. Getting caught or stabbed by its tusks could lead to instant death. Although bolts flew and struck fast, it was not enough to stop the boars. It only enraged them more. Thud! One boar fell. Johann's thrown spear had pierced its thick body, striking the heart. Amazing! Strike, Gerdulf! Gerdulf leapt off his horse, sword in hand, and aimed at the boar like a spear. The boar, charging with full speed, ran straight into the greatsword. Gah! Jumping aside to minimize the impact was a crude method. Gerdulf's hand was torn, bleeding profusely. Another boar turned towards Gerdulf. Johann rode to the side on his horse. Having already thrown his spear, Johann followed with a mace, striking the boar's side furiously. The thumping noise echoed loudly. The boar staggered and fell to the side with a piteous squeal. The watching mercenaries were impressed by the two knights' crude, spirited way of fighting. They had never seen knights fight like that. Is this the strength of a human? For the mercenaries, allies, it was a sight of awe, but not for the goblins. The warrior who suddenly appeared and slew the beast seemed like a monster emerging from the dark. The goblins howled and started to flee in all directions. The complete darkness helped conceal their small figures. "What are those things babbling about? Seems like they're calling us demons." "What? You understand goblin language?" "No. Just seems like it." "Stop talking nonsense. Prepare to chase." The mercenaries halted at Johann's command, looking at him curiously. "Are we not pursuing them? Fighting monsters in unknown places at night only leads to injury. There's no need to create unnecessary casualties." The mercenaries, though not clearly visible in the dark, seemed moved. It was rare for knights to care for their soldiers. To most knights, soldiers were merely expendable. Expendable for their honor and achievements. Scouting at night, volunteering for the first charge, all were possible because soldiers were seen as expendable. Some knights even deliberately sent mercenaries to their deaths to save on wages. In this regard, Johann was a knight who naturally commanded loyalty, not for wages or spoils, but for his charisma. "Are you Sir Knight, Marcel's troll slayer?" "How you recognized me, I don't know, but yes." Johann answered the question that came from among the monks. In a situation of mutual wariness, it was better to reassure quickly if the other party recognized him. Chapter 53. Indeed. I did not expect there to be so many with the divine power bestowed by God. The monks were very pleased. To think that they would meet Marcel's troll slayer in such a place. The rumors of this world spread differently according to the class. Among the nobles, the commoners, the mercenaries, and the monks. These rumors spread surprisingly fast and were also the only means for people to gather information. "How did you hear about my story?" "We heard it from the warriors of the monastic order who participated in the subjugation. It's clear that God has guided us." Johann felt ambivalent towards the monks' attitude. It was good that strangers were not hostile, but being too friendly was also disconcerting. It seemed like they were treating Johann as if he were a leading monk or priest of their own. "Do these monks know Sir Knight?" "It doesn't seem like it." The mercenaries who followed Johann were also murmuring in surprise. Ordinarily, knights and monks, that is, the church, were not close. Politically, they were allies, but ideologically, they were complete opposites. Knights pursued honor, ventured into battlefields, defeated enemies, and plundered gold. Although they professed faith, they rarely gave back to the real weak, the serfs. The church frowned upon duels and tournaments that knights enjoyed. Naturally, the church and knights often clashed. One of the most common tasks of priests assigned to fiefdoms was to follow and preach to knights. Of course, it was rare for knights to listen. For a knight, piety was merely a convenient ornament to elevate their honor. But now, the monks' attitude was as friendly as if they were dealing with a famous priest. Johann led the monks outside. They couldn't spend the night in a town where such a fight had occurred. Did the Bishop of Mosho send you? No, he didn't send us. The bishop spoke to us, and we decided to come on our own accord. Mosho was a fiefdom located to the west of Abner and Count Jarpen's territory. And it was a fiefdom of the Erland's kingdom. The Bishop of Mosho, though governed by a bishop who was also a count, remained a vassal and feudal lord of King Erland's. Surprised, Johann asked Suitlug, "Is it okay for a feudal lord to send people to another's fiefdom like this?" "Of course not. I know what kind of person the Bishop of Mosho is. A man firmly armed with piety." Then, hearing about the suffering of the serfs nearby, he must have sent armed monks without informing the countess. Sending people for the serfs who had fled under Countess Abner's rule was quite a risky move. A feudal lord is like a king in his own fiefdom. Interfering in someone else's fiefdom is naturally. Knowing this, they acted without notifying the count. These folks don't seem very scared. What would monks know about politics? Their only faith is in God, what else would they fear? Suit clicked his tongue. He wasn't irreligious, but couldn't compare to a monk. The church's monotheistic faith had a generous and lenient God, but those who believed in that faith weren't always so. Suitlug found the zealotism shown by the monks and paladins disturbing, even if they came with good intentions this time. "We must arrest them immediately, sir. How dare they act without the countess's permission?" Ino reacted vehemently. He was angered that the monks had acted without informing the countess. "What do you think? Imprisoning them seems right, but you'll be the one getting all the blame." "I was thinking the same. Imprisoning the monks, who came to do good deeds, would only bring criticism to Johann. Moreover, the monks' attitude seemed oddly familiar, as if Johann's reputation had been somewhat distorted. "Have you ever been involved with the monastic order? Do I look like that sort of person to you?" "Well." Suitlug was immediately convinced. Johann felt somewhat annoyed. "We came to hunt monsters, we can't imprison faithful monks. Let's cooperate until the job is done." "But sir, I don't have the right to punish them, do I? I'll report to the countess later." Seeing that he couldn't persuade Johann, Ino turned to Stephen. "Sir Stephen, they are acting recklessly. It seems Sir Johann is right." Yes. With Stephen taking that stance, Ino had no choice. If the countess interrogated him later, all he could say was, Gerdolf, his son, awkwardly started speaking. I think. Ino was surprised when his son spoke. Could it be that Gerdolf, as a knight of the countess, was trying to make a statement in this situation? Sir's words are correct. I think so. Oh. Thank you, Sir Gerdolf. And well done in the recent battle. Thank you. Gerdolf smiled contentedly, waving his hand. His torn hand didn't hurt much, thanks to the cloth Johann had wrapped around it when he returned. Ino looked at his son, dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Suitlug was lost in thought. Indeed. Sending people into someone else's fiefdom like that. It's not that surprising. The west of the empire is influenced by the Erland's kingdom, and the south is influenced by the city-states of Catalia. Even the Abner family is distantly related to the king of Erland's. Once a conflict breaks out in a fiefdom, kingdoms, the empire, and city-states all secretly intervene. The noble families are intertwined like a spider web. Nationality didn't matter. There were cases where nobles from various countries competed for a single count title. Of course, I doubt the Bishop of Mosho initiated this with a shallow plan to increase his influence by sending monks. The Countess knows this too, so even if it becomes known, it will be resolved. But what were you doing this morning? I didn't see you around. I was praying with the monks in the morning. Suit clenched his mouth shut, trying to hold back his laughter. Did you really do it? Would I not have done it there? You? Really? Do you even know the prayers? I know most of them by heart. Johann's response surprised Suitlug once again. The oblivious monks invited Johann to join them in morning prayers. The leading priest, even more clueless, gave Johann the honor of starting the first verse. Johann began the prayer with verses he had learned from priest Valberga. O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall show forth your praise. I don't understand why the monks are acting like this. They treat me like some wandering ascetic knight. I was surprised too. It's rare for monks to act like that. The Holy Knights Order members from the punitive force must have really thought highly of you. Anyway, it's better than being criticized as corrupt. You say it's not bad to pray daily and live modestly. It's good for both body and soul. It's okay to endure hardships when you're young. You can indulge in desires when you're older. Johann, annoyed by Suitlug's uncharacteristic advice, gathered the mercenaries. It was time to check the town, as dawn had broken. The mercenaries were astounded anew at the size of the wild boar. It definitely seemed like a monster. Catching it alone. Hard to tell who's the real monster. Are you crazy? Be careful with your words. If we all get whipped because of you. And no. It just slipped out. Gather the goblin corpses on one side and burn them. The rest will search the town's underground. The monks had camped in the ruined town, intending to find the goblin's den. The remaining houses provided good shelter from the cold wind. But as night fell, goblins suddenly sprang up everywhere in the town. It was clear they had been staying underground. Prepare to start a fire. We need to smoke them out. Step aside. What a coward. Do you think smoke will work? The experienced mercenaries prepared to smoke out the goblins, knowing that if they threw burning green wood into the den, the goblins would emerge like a pack of dogs. Aren't they coming out? What? It's clear they have fled. After finishing up in the town, Suitlug said this upon receiving the report. The faces of the mercenary captains were also filled with surprise. Usually they don't run away easily, those persistent ones. The goblins were known to stubbornly resist even when faced with a subjugation force. But now, they just vanished. Suitlug simply stated. Seems like they really got scared. Certainly. The mercenaries at the scene immediately understood. Honestly, even if they were goblins, they would have fled after seeing that. I don't know what Sir Johann did, but since the goblin creatures have fled, we need to think about what's next. Suitlug pointed towards the mountains near the town and said, We'll search the mountains. The mercenaries sighed. Whether experienced or not, searching the mountains for monster dens was a tedious and unwelcome task. Moreover, this was a place where subjugation had failed several times before. It would surely not be easy to find. Can't we just use dogs to search? Are you from the south? Goblins can fool dogs too. They mix mud and saliva and apply it. The conversation among the mercenary captains halted. It was because Karamaf had let out a deep growl. Could Sir Knight's wolf perhaps track them? Seems confident. Karamaf raised his head proudly. The mercenaries admired the sight. Indeed, a wolf led by a knight seemed to be something special. However, Johann was a bit worried. If he stepped forward boldly in front of the subjugation team and then failed. Johann moved, recalling what Suitlug had said. It made sense why the wizard only spoke to him. Mercenaries, despite their rough appearance, were often superstitious and easily frightened. Suitlug's words would have only scared them more. While tracking the scent of goblins, Karamaf, ascending the mountain, swiped the earth with his massive paws, revealing an entrance to a cave big enough for 2 or 3 people to pass through. Quite the skill, isn't it? How did he find a goblin den like this? The mercenaries buzzed in preparation for battle. Entering such caves and fighting was part of a mercenary's job. But Johann, along with Gerdulf, stood at the forefront. Sir Knight, you're not planning to go inside, are you? And if I am? Well, it's just. Stop the pointless chatter and get the mercenaries ready to enter. We'll go in as soon as we're prepared. I'll fight with all my might. Brave. That's how a knight, Gerdulf, should be. Hearing that Johann was going in, the mercenaries involuntarily rechecked their arms. A knight, especially in front of their employer, couldn't afford to show any disgrace. Especially a knight willing to enter such perilous terrain. 3 hours later. Johann came out of the cave with the mercenaries. Their shields and maces were caked with goblin blood. Is everyone out? Yes. We'll rest for a bit and then move to the next cave. Stay alert during the break. The mercenaries waiting outside were puzzled by the expressions of their comrades. They looked as if they had encountered a ghost inside. What happened? Did you run into a troll instead of goblins? No, it's not that. Are they injured? No, they seem unharmed. Didn't they even draw their swords? Why is there no blood on them? Did they just go for a walk? Chapter 54. Usually, it's basic for the experienced soldiers to stand at the front unless it's a special case. Well-armed and experienced senior soldiers could hold their ground in a fight, but newcomers often just collapsed. If the front line collapses, even the skilled fighters in the back line get affected. In that regard, it wasn't surprising that Johann and Gerdolf were leading at the front. Because they were the best armed and the best fighters. It was surprising that the knights weren't leading in a cave fight against goblins. The mercenaries who entered the cave were curious to see how well the two knights fought. The knights, skilled in horsemanship, were invincible on horseback. But what about on foot? Could they be just as invincible in a muddy, close-quarters fight in a dark, narrow cave? Turns out, the knights were indeed invincible on foot as well. The goblins. The goblins? Did they cast some wicked magic or something? It was the first time I felt sorry for the goblin scum. A mercenary briefly and simply shared his impression. Everyone was shocked by his words. What in the world? It was like hearing a soft, inexperienced newcomer talking, not a seasoned mercenary. As the goblins were rushing forward, not stopping, just trampling everything in their path, and we were about to help from behind, but they were swept away like boulders. I was just stunned. So you did nothing but watch? What kind of asshole are you? Worthless? I took down a few that jumped out from the side. Because of guys like you, Sir Knight can't work properly. They're not going to fire us for that, right? And maybe not. The mercenaries swallowed hard. Even mercenaries have their own pride. Being fired for incompetence was a disgrace. Especially if the opposite party was not some insignificant noble, but a respected warrior. Without the mercenaries realizing, Johann had already earned their respect. Gaining respect among tough warriors wasn't difficult. Just don't shy away like a coward, lead the fight, be generous with gold, and respect the mercenaries. Though, it was actually hard to do. Stephen. Yes? I hope you haven't been saying unnecessary things to the mercenaries. What? No, why would I? Stephen, who had been sitting quietly as instructed, was taken aback by Johann's question. What a baseless accusation. I really did nothing. Ask the servants around. The mercenaries started fighting fiercely, so I wondered. Johann suspected that Stephen might have made some unnecessary threats or promises of rewards to the mercenaries, considering how aggressively they attacked. It seems that was not the case. So, how did the subjugation go? So far, it's successful. Seems like we've caught about 1,000. 1,000? 1,000? Are you serious? Stephen was astounded. How could he speak so calmly about such an achievement? That's a great success. A grand success. I must write a report to the Countess right away. Until now, the mercenaries who came here for subjugation had only managed to catch a few dozen at best. After that, the goblins would disappear and not show up again, and the mercenaries would spend their time idly around the town, eventually giving up and returning. This was indeed a success, no, a grand success. Suet opened his mouth in admiration of the quick victory. We've indeed benefited greatly from the wolf. Certainly, it was good to actively pursue the subjugation rather than wait. Yes. It would have been harder if we waited, scared by someone. But did the goblins not counterattack? The mercenaries said the same, but no. They just holed up in their caves. Karamaf, encouraged by Johann's praise, energetically found every goblin cave. In each cave, there were dozens, even hundreds of goblins, and Johann and the mercenaries thoroughly annihilated them. The mercenaries expected that even the fleeing ones would gather and attack desperately, but there was no sign of it. Aren't the goblin creatures plotting something? Like an ambush. Normally, I would have dismissed it as nonsense, but there are many suspicious instances this time. It's better to be cautious. Anyway, the initial search is over. Now we'll stay in the town, persuade the escaped serfs to return, and look for any remaining caves. Right. Well done. Johann playfully tickled Karamaf's chin. Suetlug found the giant wolf acting coquettishly quite fascinating. Where did Johann find this creature? Taming monsters is quite a special skill, after all. Had the goblins gone mad? Why won't they listen? Quiet! There's just a temporary issue, they'll soon follow my commands again. Can't you see those mercenaries swarming below? We can't even get out like this. You might have nothing to lose with your lowly status, but I have a lot at stake. Didn't I tell you to shut up? The wizard, cloaked in robes, threatened the young nobleman with a fierce voice. Startled by the tone, the nobleman hesitated. Expeditions have come and gone before. Left alone, they'll eventually leave. It doesn't matter if the goblins don't attack. The wizard was using the nearby goblins as his minions, orchestrating attacks on the town and fending off the expeditions, all under his command. But this time, the expedition was different. Not only did they capture the carefully raised monstrous boar, but the goblins also began to flee in fear. The most astonishing thing was that the goblins, usually frenzied by drugs offered as rewards or by special scents that enhanced their wildness, started hiding in their dens, refusing to move. At this point, the wizard realized something. The knight leading this expedition was clearly not to be underestimated. It was frustrating, but nothing changed that reality. The wizard, true to his nature, had to accept it and start scheming. If the goblins don't attack, it might take longer, but those guys will eventually be satisfied and retreat. Would such a powerful knight dastard stay here long? Can you stay calm even after the goblins have been annihilated? Goblins will repopulate over time. The ones I directly raised are still fine. Leave them be. But if things stay this way, we can't go outside. Didn't I tell you to stay put and endure? Don't you have any patience? What's lacking here, water or food? The wizard's clear, aged voice sparkled with a killing intent, sending chills down the nobleman's skin. All right, I'll wait inside. If you try any foolish tricks to go outside, I won't let you off easy. Just pray quietly. Why, yes. While cleaning up the corpses and gathering the loot, nothing happened in the town as they searched for the scattered serfs. Not even a single raid. Among the mercenaries, mundane talk circulated. However, Suitlig and Johann felt uneasy. Of course, they had caught a tremendous number of goblins, but we haven't encountered those wearing metal armor. Right. That's the problem. Isn't it strange? And what about that boar? There must be a place where it's being raised. My lord. The monks have arrived. Johann's face twisted at Geoffrey's report. Suitlig struggled to suppress a laugh. Another prayer? No. The monks say they have something to report. After the massive subjugation ended, the monks scoured the mountains, wandering around. It was because of records mentioning a forgotten temple nearby. It was part of their duty to search for such temples based on the information recorded in the monastery. You found it? Isn't that good? It's great news for the people of the town. Well done. It seems to be a temple of a different faith. The monks hesitated as they spoke, feeling it blasphemous even to discuss such a matter. What? Suitlig showed even more interest. A temple of a different faith? In such a place, something precious? Suitlignim. Ah. My apologies. Suitlig cleared his throat. There was no need to act like a heretic in front of the monks. They were not ordinary fools. It definitely looks like a temple of a different faith, but it feels too blasphemous for us to examine it further. We are sorry. Ha. Don't worry. God will understand, forgive us. Suitlig looked at Johann with a horrified expression. Did he almost say just now? Such words were not fitting for a devout believer. Of course, the thoroughly smitten monks did not notice. You came to ask to report to the bishop, right? Yes. It doesn't seem like something we should verify. Suitlig desperately nudged Johann's back. It was a signal to show him first, before the Bishop of Mosho saw it. Johann nodded. Understood. But I can't report directly to the bishop easily, so I will verify and report after seeing it myself. Oh. To give Sir Johann such trouble. It's obviously my duty. The monks, moved, made the sign of the cross and then withdrew. Their faces were filled with trust, believing Johann was reliable. Hearing this, Suitlig said, if there's a trial later, it's better to be judged by the church. That would be very reassuring. Johann selected the strongest and most discreet among the mercenaries. While scouting was important, for Suitlig's sake, tight-lipped mercenaries would be better. That was all well and good. Suitlik was grateful for Johan's thoughtfulness. Indeed, friendship is felt in such moments. However, why did you bring that foolish night dastard? I had no choice, he kept following. Behind them, the butcher Gerdolf and the mercenaries were walking. For Suitlik, it was an astonishing situation. We need people to guard outside too, so having Gerdolf isn't bad. He's a loyal friend. I think you have a knack for befriending strange people, huff huff. Johan thought so but didn't say it aloud. So, why do you want to see that temple? Don't you know? They say it's a heretical temple, but it's surely from the ancient empire era. Of course, it could be a new temple secretly built by heretics, but considering it's mentioned in monastery records, it's unlikely. It must be an artifact from long ago. Huff huff. Imagine the mysteries and secrets it holds. Suitlik, out of breath, was glad they reached the reported location without getting lost. What do you think? We'll see. Suitlik looked around mesmerized. The small temple perched on a cliff looked very ordinary, almost like a church. Suitlik touched and licked the walls, pacing back and forth. The mercenaries had to restrain their expressions at this bizarre sight. Wizards are indeed a bit crazy. Is there anything valuable? Nothing. It's all gone. There were no silverware or unused sacrificial implements that Johan wanted. Most of the valuable items had been made of gold or silver. Suitlik, wandering inside, stopped in front of a wall for a while. This is a door. A barrier against intruders. During the Empire's chaotic times, various looters roamed. A church was prime prey, so such a door is not surprising. Can you open it? Well, it might take days to figure out how. We can stay and investigate. That's a bit. Why not? How can we leave everything to Stephen alone? Then leave me behind. How can I leave Suitnik alone? If it's really a door, I'll try to open it. What are you talking about? If it's something that can be opened with strength. Oh.